Welcome to our Saturday Simulcast, April 12th edition. And Brian Neubert will join me shortly. Alan Karpick here from GoldandBlack.com. We want to thank our sponsors, the Union Club Hotel and the Boiler House Prime Restaurant. In just opened this week. In fact, I had the opportunity, very fortunate to be able to go on Tuesday night. I think it was their soft open. Quite the place. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility. I know Sam Allen, who we've had on the show in the past, who donated the money for it, was impressed. Well, it is an impressive facility. And when you get the chance, if you get the chance to do it, it's well worth it. And it's not just the Boiler House Prime. It obviously, that's the restaurant that the Union Club Hotel is involved with, but a lot there at the facility as well. Kind of a golf clubhouse feel. You can go there and have lunch as well. But it is a beautiful view, beautiful facility. The bar up top is one like I've never seen. It was really a good experience. So, and I saw Gene Katie there. So I guess that was he was there on the first night. And they have a thing called Katie Corner, of all things, kind of Gene's old spot. Neat image of him as in his Hall of Fame coat. Neat spot, and I hope you'll get a chance to do it. So, Brian, we're going to bring Brian Neubert in here, who is always on prime time here with us, and we appreciate him. Brian, nothing going on, as I always say, going on in the world of Purdue basketball, and yet everything's going on in that world. I guess just bring us up to date on what you. There's a lot you know, and what you can share on what's going on in the ever fluid world of the transfer portal. And Purdue's obviously having already had an active situation when Oscar Clough decided to come aboard. But what's the latest, at least as it sits on Saturday, April 12th?
Yeah, I'm going to be like Tennessee's quarterback and not talk until you up my deal.
There you go. All right. Can I Venmo you?
I think I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know you're not kidding.
No, so I'm sorry. What did you say?
Well, you're worried about your deal. I get that. No, what's up now? I mean, obviously, we're still 10 days away from the closing of the transfer portal. Doesn't mean that all the transactions will be done by then. But what's the latest of things you can share and that you know and want to share with respect to Purdue's lot in life? Well, obviously, we talked about Oscar Clough, or you talked about that last week, and Purdue picking him up in the portal. But Purdue certainly does not appear to be done in this ever-changing landscape of college basketball.
Yeah, and a lot of these, or at least one of these guys that Purdue's recruiting, they're not transfers, so the portal window doesn't matter.
That's correct.
I've been holding out on pronouncing names of this player in Israel, Omer Meyer. It might be Omer. I'm thinking of the old NBA player Omer Ashik, but he's Turkish, so I don't. And he had an umlaut over the O, if I recall correctly. So I'm not entirely sure there. So, but that it's pretty much come to light. It's kind of out in the public realm now. Purdue's in on him, and it's my belief that Purdue is kind of the school for him. He's likely got to take a visit here pretty soon, and if Purdue's able to get him, he's an overseas professional. He's a really high-end player. He's a guy who can impact a great team now, it would seem like. But then he's also stability after Braden Smith, because once Braden Smith leaves after this year, you have your natural guy who can slide in with those true point guard skills and a really high-level playing resume, too. It isn't just the fact he fills a need; it's he overfills a need because he's also really good, and he's a professional. He's mature, based on age, based on experience, and that sort of thing really, really, jives with the sorts of things Matt Painter looks for in his program. I wouldn't call this done yet until there's some sort of public acknowledgement of it, but I think this is obviously the one to watch. Outside of that, Purdue's still looking for, I'm sure, a sort of a combo forward to replace a little bit of what it lost in Camden Heide and Miles Colvin. I think when you look at Purdue on paper, they are building a hell of a roster. But if there's one thing that seems to be missing at this stage, it would be a little bit of athleticism. So I don't know if there's a guy out there. You can't just be an athlete. You have to be a good player too. And you can't just add a guy who's just going to come in and on paper give you athleticism. He's got to be able to add value to what you have around him. So that's kind of easier said than done at this stage of the game. But if there's an athletic guy who can fill a little bit of a void for you, that would certainly be a welcomed addition too. But the front court, is pretty well set with Oscar Clough, Trey Kaufman-Renn, and Daniel Jacobson. Raleigh Burgess coming back, but you could use that kind of versatile 3-4 piece, and we'll get to talking about the theoretical possibility of Brooks Barnhizer here. I'm sure at some point.
Yeah, you look at that in that roster. And again, there's, obviously with the Miles Colvin and Camden Heide departing, that need for athleticism is an important one. But, is it as simple? Nothing simple in this world. Jakari Harris and C.J. Cox are going to lend a lot of those types of things, maybe more from the backcourt. But talk about even if you bring in a Meyer and how you might see. And then again, we're not going to speak for Matt Painter and how he's going to put this all together. But if that happens, how do you see those two guys in terms of what Harris and Cox will bring to the table next year?
Well, they're obviously big pieces of this. They're Purdue's two primary on-ball defenders, and that's going to be a huge part of their role the rest of their careers at Purdue. It's going to be a huge key to Purdue's success next year because, Purdue's got to be better defensively and more consistent defensively. And that goes beyond just fixing your biggest problem, which was having no functional size this past season. It has to be everybody. It has to be the on-ball defense. I always kind of go back and watch the first Michigan game, and then go back and watch the Big Ten tournament game against Michigan. And you see two entirely different Purdue teams against the same opponent. In the first game, their pressure was unbelievable. Like completely blew that game up. The last game, it wasn't very good at all, and Michigan did whatever it wanted and ended Purdue's conference season that night in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So that is really important. That is job description number one for Jakari Harris and C.J. Cox. Them being kind of that off-ball guy in ball screen offense, as Camden Heide and Miles Colvin often were this year. Their ability to make those catch-and-shoot threes, which C.J. Cox and Harris both did a really good job of as the season went on. I didn't realize C.J. Cox ended up shooting 40% from three.
Right, yeah.
For the season. I think Jakari Harris in Big Ten play was at 40%, and that includes the two December games when he was in the middle of that horrible slump. So you're looking at two guys who are very much 40% capable, who this offense is built to get open looks for in that corner. Those guys being guards, true guards, they're better ball handlers than what you lost in that role. It's conceivable those guys might be able to attack those closeouts a little bit better than Miles Colvin and Camden Heide ever could. Very different players. There are trade-offs here, and
Sure.
it's not necessarily apples and apples here. But if Purdue can get a little bit more ball handling out there, the functionality being those closeouts and the ability to maybe get all the way to the rim or dribble off those closeouts and make the next pass, I think there's some unlocked potential there in Purdue's offense from what you saw this past season, because as good as Miles Colvin and Camden Heide were in some ways, and this isn't me,
I understood.
kind of saying Purdue's better off without these guys, because I'm not going to say that. That's not accurate. But I think they're a better kind of different in the sense that there's more ball handling in that role than there was before, and I think that can be a really big deal for Purdue. Now, what they're not going to do is they're not going to jump over people, and that's where Camden Heide and Miles Colvin. I think your superficial impression of those guys as players, immediately is drawn toward the highlight dunks. Purdue does not have that guy right now. Does Purdue need that guy? Dunks are 2 points, the same as everything else. But I do kind of wonder if they've got the same transition arsenal. You know, they did these past couple seasons with those two guys who could run the floor and finish in transition. But I think Shakari Harris and C.J. Cox had their moments where they were able to get out the open floor and do some things, and that's going to be an important part of what Purdue does this year again too, provided they're able to force more turnovers than they were at the end of the year last year when they weren't disrupting anything.
All right, you look back at and obviously we talked last week about the where you've compartmentalized or put Purdue's season, but all the way too early top 20, top 10, whatever. Purdue's certainly in that mix, and part of that is the assumption also, which you've never wavered from, not that is that the big three are coming back. There's been so much angst by the rank and file, at least people I've run to. It's like an hourly concern of which one of those three is going to jump into the transfer portal. All indications are, as you've always said, that this is they will remain at Purdue for their fourth year. But anything else to add to that discussion in terms of Trey Kaufman, Red Fletcher Lawyer, and of course Braden Smith?
Yeah, no, they're all coming back. I mean, I don't think there was ever really credible question outside of fans' paranoia and Kansas and Kentucky fans flooding the internet with their wishful thinking on Braden Smith. It's just it's a word I shouldn't use on this platform to describe how this stuff gets, with the rumor mongering and the game of telephone that occurs when one person reads something and then they text their friends, and then their friends text all their friends, and then somebody tells their girlfriend who tells their cousin whose cousin knows somebody who then tells them something else, who then takes it to the internet, and it gets on Twitter, and all of a sudden it's a 4-alarm fire that was a wet match in the first place. Could somebody have were teams tampering with Braden Smith? Of course they were. I mean, that's the world we live in. Did somebody maybe take a phone call at one point? I have no idea, but this stuff was fan fiction from other schools all along. And it just got way out of control. And this is the world we live in now. And we are all terminally online. That includes players, that includes parents, that includes coaches, that certainly includes fans. And it's just, this sort of thing is going to happen every year. And the one thing I would tell Purdue people who have been shaking in their boots for the last 3 months for no reason is that Purdue isn't Miami of Ohio here. This is not a place that people are going to, leave in basketball. I think when you look at the success Purdue's had, for one thing, when you look at the way, I can't say for certain, but I have a pretty damn good idea of how Matt Painter handles his players, and the fairness involved in all this, the honesty involved in all this, on top of very competitive money, more competitive money than people are giving Purdue credit for. Purdue is not going to be stupid. They're not going to pay $10 million for 1 year of one player, but Purdue's players are going to get what they need, get what they deserve, get what they earned. And that's the difference between Purdue and a lot of these, stupid schools out there who are just have been paying theoretical money to people just to come to their schools and then getting what they deserve. I just think if you're Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman, you've got it pretty damn good right now. And if somebody was going to come out and offer you, a king's ransom to transfer, that was kind of one of those deals where you've got it better now than you're going to have it probably almost everywhere else. And I don't even want to say almost. I just can't say for certain how things shake out. I mentioned this before. I wrote about this. It was just a thought I had. It wasn't about any specific Purdue player. I wasn't subtweeting anyone or anything like that. But go look at Coleman Hawkins. Go look at Hunter Dickinson. Those guys chase money, and look at how they're going to be remembered in college basketball. Go look at AJ Storr and his reputation right now. The guys at Purdue are different guys than that. They're more stable guys than that, probably. They've got better situations probably than they might have had before. Those other guys had before that they transferred all over the place. But when you've got it as good as these guys have it at Purdue right now, you're putting a hell of a lot on the line if you just want to take somebody you don't know up on a ridiculous offer that hopefully would be met or fulfilled. But if you don't know the people you're getting the offer from, and you don't know the people you'd be playing with, who the hell knows how that's going to turn out? And it just never made any sense on any of these guys' part. I understand I've been on here for years now saying money rules everything around us, cash rules everything around us, to quote the Wu-Tang Clan. But money's not everything to everyone. And there is plenty of money at Purdue for this to not be a four-alarm fire. People look at Purdue like it's the Goodwill.
Yeah.
It's just not reality. You're a Big Ten basketball program. Your athletic department has already gone out there and said we are putting in the full $20.5 million to revenue sharing. The NIL situation kept Zach Edey a top 10 draft pick in the NBA last year in school for his senior year. Now he wouldn't have been I'm talking out both sides of my mouth here. He wouldn't have been a top 10 pick the year before, but without NIL, he would have gone then, almost certainly. Everyone would have. But Purdue has the NIL infrastructure at least to keep guys like that in school for an extra year. That matters. That tells you that Purdue is not. I picked on poor Miami of Ohio before, but this is not a MAC program where every year your best players are going to be looking to leave. This is not a program where if somebody just comes at you with anything, it's better than what you have now. This is not that reality. Purdue fans might be scarred a little bit by football because they've been in that situation a little bit before, under Ryan Walters and whatnot. Basketball at Purdue is a different animal. Purdue went to a Final Four last year. What do you think that did to fundraising? What do you think that did to NIL donations? Purdue is going to have as taken care of a roster, I think, as just about anybody in college basketball this year, with some sanity behind it. There are going to be somebody's going to roll out a $20 million roster next year, a $10 million roster, $15 million roster, whatever it might be. But let's see how many games they win. There was a $10 million roster, 70 miles to the south of Purdue this year, and it ended up firing its coach. So it's not as easy as putting a number on it. There was a school to the east of Purdue this year that had a very disappointing season, all told, somehow paying millions of dollars to international students who, I don't know how people are getting around that anymore. We know Illinois is not reporting their NIL earnings, which, I hope for them doesn't become a federal problem instead of just a state problem. But they put a lot of money into that roster and, weren't as good as Purdue and weren't as good as, a lot of these schools that didn't invest as much money in their rosters or didn't have as much money to invest. I'm talking in circles here. Purdue's fine. Purdue is competitive. Purdue's in as good a shape as anybody. And even if they weren't, Purdue does a better job with their guys than everybody else does with mercenaries. So, long story short, people need to chill out.
All right. I can't correct you on many things, but I'm going to correct you on geography. That town is about 100 miles to the south, and the other one is to the west.
Whatever.
Okay. All right. See, I knew I would spark some kind of desire. All right. Speaking of travel, you
Let's just
obviously,
let him finish.
yeah, I did. I did let you finish.
You did.
Though I did appreciate the Chappelle reference there. It was good. What about uh, your travel here? Speaking of which, you do have a phone with a that has a map on that'll take you in the right direction. This is the time of year that you get out. How much has that changed for you? Just because of the way high school is changing, though it's still a part of what Matt Painter is all about, certainly. But in terms of watching prospects, uh, what's on your itinerary over the summer as a broad stroke view? What do you expect that you'll be part of in some form?
Well, yeah, I just cover what Purdue's doing. So
Yeah,
Purdue's going to keep committed to recruiting the same way it's always recruited. They're going to recruit high school kids. They're going to show up at underclassmen's games, unlike everybody else. Purdue's not going to live in the transfer portal.
yeah,
This is one of those years where it lines up where you need something to complete your team. You need something to complete a great team, and in those situations, you know that's what Purdue's going to do. They're not anti-portal. They're anti-living in the portal. They're not going to build their team every year with 10 transfers like some of the schools I mentioned earlier are happy to. They're going to supplement with transfers. I think that's been misperceived by a lot of people because Matt Painter is sometimes outspoken about transfers in a way that makes it sound like he never ever wants transfers on his team or he doesn't want to deal with it. Um, that's not reality. I think he will obviously participate in the transfer portal when he needs to. When he doesn't need to, he is not going to flush out his whole team every year and go recruit a bunch of new guys. He's still going to recruit high school kids. He's going to bring them in. He's going to develop them. He's going to build his team around those guys. If you need somebody when they're juniors or seniors, he will go out and get those guys. He also has to understand, and I'm sure he does, that in this era, you bring in a bunch of high school guys, and you're not going to see them all until the very end of their careers. When you recruit too many good players, what happened last month or this month happens. You lose Miles Colvin, you lose Camden Heide because there are good players above them who have seniority, and there's no clear path to get around those guys. So you have to always be recruiting in that sense. You have to build depth and you have to do your best to keep depth, but it's going to stay the same. It's going to be multiple high school kids every year. They're going to keep redshirting guys, which is a retention tool more than it is a deterrent. They're going to keep developing guys. Guys are going to have to keep being patient to a certain extent, and Purdue's going to keep finding an advantage in the fact that where they've always thrived in terms of recruiting sophomores and recruiting juniors and getting a jump on everybody else because everybody else is distracted by the portal, it's going to become even easier now. And I use the term easy loosely because it's never easy. But now it was like 10 years ago that when there was a really good underclassman in Indiana, every one of his games during evaluation periods had Purdue, Butler, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio State, Michigan State at those games. All of them. It was almost required viewing. Every one of those schools had to be at those games. And now it's going to be Purdue. And in some cases, Purdue alone, because Purdue still rolls that way. And a lot of other people are going to just worry about the portal every spring and not put as much time into a kid who, you know, you'll have to recruit for 3 years and then you could lose on a dime. Purdue is still going to, you're going to get burned on that occasionally. Sure. But that's what's Purdue gotten. That's what's gotten Purdue to where it is. And that's what Purdue's going to keep trying to do.
all right, well said, and thank you for your explanations of all these topics that are that are, as you have well articulated, moving parts, to say the least. So we appreciate that very much. And it will be an ongoing story long past when the portal window closes, which is April the 22nd. And but it will be nice, probably nice for you, especially that when that roster from Purdue is pretty much set, and that isn't all that far away. So,
Well, a very important thing to underscore here: if a guy's not a portal guy, if he's an international player who's
right,
essentially the same as a high school recruit, the portal window doesn't matter.
That's right.
So
the roster could still change if there's some of those.
You know what? The portal in general doesn't matter, because the kid from Wisconsin, the football player who wanted to transfer from Wisconsin to Miami, but Wisconsin wouldn't let him go in the portal. All he had to do was drop out of Wisconsin and enroll at Miami.
Same deal.
So that's
portal is a communication.
All this is a Rolodex. It's just a Rolodex of names. It is literally, I have been on it. It is literally just a listserv of, I don't know if that's the proper, no, a listserv is like a chat, right?
Right.
All
it's a communication
portal is a directory. It's a list.
Yeah, right.
And you can only go in or come out on certain dates. But it's largely just that. It's not really all that binding. So the April 22nd closure of this thing, really all it does is it means the people on your team now, haven't jumped at their opportunity to leave your program. Doesn't mean they still can't, but it should give people peace of mind that if this guy wanted to leave, that was the time to do it. So it's really just kind of a formality.
All right, worthwhile explanation. All right, Brian, thanks again. I want to, I do want to thank the Union Club Hotel, the Boiler Up bar, but also its new restaurant, the Boiler House Prime. Great spot that if you get the chance when you come to town or are in town, get those reservations early, because it's going to be a happening place throughout the coming months. Opened, of course, at the Burke Boilermaker golf course, and the Pete Dye Clubhouse is part of that too. So thanks to all. We'll see you next week. I'm sure we'll have some more enlightening discussions, some football and basketball. Tom Dienhart also we'll be doing a Saturday post spring showcase YouTube live to talk to Tom and kind of get the rest of the Purdue football as well. So have a great rest of your Saturday. Thanks again for watching or listening. A reminder, too, that you can subscribe to GoldandBlack.com. It's a great idea, actually. Father's Day coming up here before long. Become a member. It's well worth it. Things that Brian writes about and Tom write about that don't always make it into full stories get on our message boards. There's a lot of lively discussion there, is a nice way of putting it, but a great place if you're a Purdue fan to become a member. We also have some specials going on from time to time too, so stay tuned for that. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Thanks again for watching and listening to Saturday Simulcast.